This is Ed DeLaney from Indiana House District 86. This is the second of my podcasts on the topic of data centers and what their threats and opportunities they pose to us. So this time I'm going to turn to the local tax impact. Our last discussion was about the impact by giving up billions of dollars of state sales tax revenue. That cuts into the state budget and affects your state taxes. But today I want to talk to you about your local taxes, which for this purpose are property taxes, something that the Republican majority says is a crisis, and they concede that those taxes are too high. So what are they doing about the data centers as it relates to local property taxes? Well, the simple answer is there's a competition among some local units to basically give away any property tax revenue from data centers. That, of course, is a generous gift to them and is what I call a tax expenditure. Remember, what's considered a tax incentive by the one who gets it and who claims that they have an incentive as a result to do something, the government's perspective is that that's a tax expenditure, meaning you give up income that you otherwise would have had. Now, that expenditure not only benefits the company that gets the break, it costs you, because someone in a position similar to you who should be paying a tax does not have to. That is a very difficult thing for people to understand, but it's the reality. So if you run a flower shop and you pay property taxes, you're going to miss the opportunity to have your tax rate lowered because another property owner called a data center comes onto the rolls. It gets on the rolls with, of course, a much bigger cost or value than you have. It is required normally to contribute its portion of property taxes, and the net effect is that your rate could be lowered. That's true if you're a homeowner. So what we're doing, and we need to realize this, when we give a property tax concession to a large data center, we're talking about huge sums because a facility could be worth as much as $10 billion for a facility. Some will be higher. So at a 3% tax rate, they could be paying $300 million a year. And there's a lot of room between 0 and 300 million. And how does the decision made as to where that will be? Well, the decision is made on property taxes by local governments. And it's made, frankly, by whichever local government wants to help itself the most. And what do I mean by that? Let's look at Boone County as an example. The city of Lebanon expanded its boundaries to include territory that had been part of, let's call it unincorporated or county territory, where the tax rates and so forth were set by the county government. Once Lebanon had this territory, they were in a position to decide on how much of a tax break to give Meta. And when they gave that break, they not only reduced the taxes that were available to the city of Lebanon, but the sheriff's office was subjected to whatever Lebanon picked. The county government had the same consequence. The court system, every governmental unit in Boone County found itself restricted in what it could get because of a concession made by Lebanon. You get the problem. So all the citizens in the county who could have benefited by having a full tax rate don't get that benefit. That's a pretty amazing decision, and I think that's a flaw in our system. We need to have at least a county-wide decision making on this stuff. Let's go further on this. From the county's perspective, counties currently assess taxes that they can't collect. What does that mean? If they say that your home worth, let's take an example, $250,000, if they try to assess you under their rates, all approved for $3,000 tax on your $250,000 home. If they try to do that, they can only get $2,500. They can only get 1%. So they pretend that they're charging you money that they can't charge. If Meta was paying a fair share, your rate would fall. The county would collect fully on your taxes, but only on a lower tax. So the county gets what it's budgeted for, what it plans for, and you get a tax reduction. Or we can make a concession to a company like Meta, which does not seem to be in any great financial need. So if you're interested in your taxes or taxes local business or just in the concept of tax fairness, you should be very concerned about what's happening when local government makes tax concessions to these large corporations. And you should be concerned whether your county does it or some municipality within your county. If you live in Zionsville, you're constricted in effect by what was decided by Lebanon. So you need to think about that. If you have reactions, you should write them to the Indiana Finance Authority, which is at 1 North Capitol in Indianapolis, or you should send an email to me, to my campaign email, or talk to your neighbors. That's the most important. Talk to your local government officials and let them know you're concerned. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll be back in a week or so with a third podcast on data centers. And remember my slogan, all we want is a fair tax, not a small tip. I don't want to have a town given a swimming pool while a county loses millions in revenue.